Lex is the best totally blind and triple jumper in the history of the US Paralympic movement. At age 19, Lex won his first Paralympic silver medal in long jump. He is the current world record holder in long jump, a 4-time Paralympic medalist, a 3-time long jump world champion, and an 18-time national champion. He is the only totally blind athlete to ever eclipse the 22-foot barrier in the long jump. Lex started to lose his vision at the age of 7 when he had a series of recurrent retina detachments and surgeries in response. By the age of 8, he knew he would be blind, but he continued to excel in school and with his sighted peers. He learned to use a folding cane, and his school provided him with a braille alternatives to reading assignments. Now in his 30s, he not only holds a number of world records, but he is a motivational speaker, mentor, and singer-songwriter. Lex epitomizes the phrase, "No need for sight when you have a vision." You're a world record holder who doesn't have to use his vision. That's a pretty incredible feat. Can you tell us how you first got involved in sports?
I got into sport when I was in high school, and actually before that, it was a lot of my mom's side of the family is the athletic side. So everyone's played it all from baseball, softball, basketball, volleyball, everything. And I was an athletic kid. Prior to me losing my sight, I was playing baseball, and then I also used to I was swimming at that time. It wasn't competitively, but certainly knew how to swim, and I could run and do the cannonballs and things like that into the pool. But after I had lost my sight when I was in high school, I had a teacher. He was my visually impaired teacher actually, and he would go to PE class with me, and there was a physical fitness test that we had to participate in. One of the activities was standing long jump, and I was really good at standing long jump. He then asked me about the Paralympics, if I've ever heard of it, and at that time I didn't. He told me it was the highest pinnacle competition for athletes who have a physical disability, and you could potentially go and travel the world, win medals, break records, represent Team USA. And I thought that was amazing. I mean, certainly, for sure. And he then took me down to the track and introduced me to running long jump, showed me everything about the runway itself, how I needed to run down this stretch of track. And there's a takeoff board that's in the ground, and you have to jump from that area. Showed me the long jump pit itself, how wide it was, how long it was. And that was really huge for me because I was able to see at one point being able to walk around that area, learn the landscape. That helped me to create an image in my mind of the environment, and being able to visualize things helps me to build that confidence and increase my comfort level. From there, it was us beginning to train and work out Monday through Friday. I joined my high school track team, and the rest is basically history from there. I've been training and competing for Team USA over the past 10 plus years, and it's been a lot of fun, taking me to a lot of countries that I would have never imagined, put me on a lot of podiums, and have been fortunate to break some records. And now I am currently training for the upcoming Paralympic Games in Tokyo. So pretty excited about that.
That's incredible. Have you ever been to Japan?
I've been to Japan once, went to Okinawa a few years back, and it was really cool. But I'm ready to go to Tokyo.
Oh, that's amazing. And so when you're in a competition, how do you prepare? You mentioned a little bit about walking around and stuff. So how do you prepare for the jumper competition?
Yeah, we walk around the actual area itself, so get a chance to walk around the runway and the takeoff area, walk around the sand pit itself. And again, just to reiterate, that really helps me to get a good idea of what I'm dealing with, so I can figure out how much space I have to the left and to the right, and know when I need to abort mission, if you will. Kind of make sure that I'm staying within a certain space. But with all of the practice that we do, for the most part, we really don't have to worry about any going veering off too much. Um, but yeah, I mean that's a lot of the preparation process, and then everything else is getting yourself ready mentally and making sure that you are in the perfect space to be able to get out there and compete at a high level.
Okay. And so you really glow when you talk about sports. You can
Ah,
tell like how much joy it brings. So, like, what type of joy does it bring being an athlete bring to you?
it brings a lot of joy. It brings a lot of joy for sure. You think about where you come from and how things used to be, and to be able to overcome the challenges and circumstances that you're dealt with in life, to be able to surpass those things and to be elevated to a certain point in life where you compete in athletics or anything else that brings you joy. That's huge. It keeps you driven, it keeps you uplifted, and keeps you motivated and inspired. So for me, definitely sport has been a really huge catalyst.
Absolutely. And so, what was your most challenging competition to date, and why was it so challenging?
Most challenging competition, there's been a number of them. I would say the most recent one would be Rio, the last Paralympic Games, and that was challenging because it was very hard for me to hear inside of the stadium. And that's important because I have a guide who's standing at the takeoff board, the takeoff area where I need to jump from, and he's clapping and yelling, fly, 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 fly. So since I can't see what's going on, I'm listening to the sound of his voice, following where he is, counting my strides, and once I get to the correct stride, then I take off, fly through the air. So as you can imagine, if you can't hear your guide, if you're having a difficult time hearing the person who's calling you, then it makes it difficult to navigate from point A to point B confidently. Even though I was able to get through that, I was able to get through that one jump specifically. I was able to hear him pretty well, and a lot of the other ones, it was very challenging. And I was able to make it onto the podium, which I'm very proud of, and always proud to get on the podium and experience that, not only for myself but for everyone who's impacted my life. I think they all, my mom and everyone who's helped me in life, they all experienced that vicariously through me. But as an athlete, you go out there and you want to get on the top step, and I didn't achieve that. I was able to get up there and win silver, but I was on a mission. I wanted to win gold, and I felt like there were external factors that factored into that, and certainly don't want to make it as appear as though like, oh, these are excuses. As an athlete, there's always things that you face, and there's always challenges that you have to overcome. But for me, I would like to put everything on my shoulders as to say, oh well, I could have did this differently. I could have focused better, or the pressure just got to me. I couldn't point to any of those things. I honestly felt like, had myself and a lot of the other competitors been able to clearly hear inside of the stadium, I think the results would have been different.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that. Has any feedback gone to that like committee for so in the future that's something that they can help work with?
I know at that time our high performance director had been sending in during the competition. She was trying to get the attention of of the appropriate people, and I'm not sure if she was able to do that. And I know that I had even asked the officials, because it's not uncommon for the crowd to get excited and for them to cheer. There's always other events going on within the stadium. Track and field is made up of a number of different events, so you can have three, four, five different things going on at the same time. It's natural for the crowd to make noise and to cheer. However, at the same time, we have we've had the luxury of being able to ask the officials to relay the message to the PA person, for them to get on the microphone and say, "Hey, you have the blind long jump going on. Can you be cognizant and mindful of those athletes who are trying to hear their guide?" And I don't I don't recall that happening. I know some of the responses that I had gotten were, they appeared as though they couldn't do anything about it. Well, I say they appeared as though they couldn't do anything about it. They made it seem like they couldn't do anything about it. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and we've had a number of major international competitions since then, and I was able to win gold in those. And I'm focused on training as hard as I can right now, so when Tokyo pops up, I'll be able to go in that stadium, compete, and get what I've been wanting for the past few years.
Oh, awesome. Well, hopefully it'll happen sooner than later and not be
Yeah,
delayed due to COVID, correct?
for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so you mentioned in your TED Talk that you taught yourself how to make baskets by adapting your hoop. We often talk about how people with disabilities are natural hackers. We have to adapt to the world to move through it successfully. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think that as a person with a disability, your life is it's different, and you make adjustments and adaptations because in order to keep pushing forward and in order to excel, you just have to you have to do things differently sometimes. And I think that even though, as we're discussing that as a person with a disability, I think that as a human being in general, since change is inevitable, change is always happening every day that we're on this earth. Our success is linked to our ability to manage that change and to do what we need to do to embrace it and figure out plans to um, plans to move forward. And so as a person who has a disability, that was a major change that I endured. But moving forward just meant that I needed to make the necessary plans and do things a little differently, and take more time to do certain activities and tap into certain resources and tools and technology, and be exposed to people who have a lot of information and a lot of knowledge and wisdom. Between all of those things, I was able to ultimately see my potential and realize that I could go out there and contribute to the world just like the next person. Specifically, as a person who's blind or visually impaired, um, there are a number of unique circumstances that we have to deal with on top of the day-to-day issues that we all face. But again, to your point, when we're surrounded by people who are able to expose us to those resources and programs and technologies out there, we're now exposed to that potential, and you can see what's truly possible. So I think about, when you think about hacking the basketball hoop, and and me learning a way to determine when I would score, that is the essence of living life with a disability. You figure out ways to do what you need to do so that you can go in life, travel in life, move through life, and put up points on that scoreboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, if you're comfortable, can you tell us a little bit about the experience of you losing your eyesight as a child?
Yeah, it was. I was born with sight. Everything was going good up until I was 8 years old. Came home from school one day that night, started noticing that I was losing my sight, literally out of the blue. No accident, didn't fall down or anything like that. Things were starting to look blurry, faint. It was hard for me to really focus, and went to the doctor. After an examination, excuse me, they said I needed to have an emergency operation because I was suffering from retina detachments. That led to a string of 10 operations that I had that year that I was 8. And after the last operation, doctors said that there was nothing else they could do to help my sight. And they said that I would eventually become blind. From there, it was go home, go through your normal routine, go to sleep at night, wake up the next morning. You see a little less than what you do the day before until one day you wake up and you can't make out much of anything.
Oh, wow. That's tough. Um, so as a child, what were some of your dreams and aspirations? Did you ever dream that you would end up in the Olympics?
Never. At that time, what was I dreaming of? I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be an attorney. Um, those were the kind of the major things at that particular time. At one time, I wanted to be a computer programmer as well. So I had a number of different things that I was interested in, and even at this time, I'm competing in athletics. I still, I write, and that's really important for me to be able to get my thoughts and feelings out there. I actually just released a book a few months ago that's entitled Fly, Find Your Own Wings and Soar Above Life's Challenges. That was a goal of mine. It was on my to-do list. So I'm glad I was able to mark that off, and certainly want to write some more books as well. But never in my wildest dream would I have imagined being an athlete and going to a lot of the places that I've been able to go to, and meet a number of the people who I've met, and wouldn't imagine going in a lot of the rooms and spaces that I've been able to go to. It's been pretty mind-boggling for sure.
That's amazing. And congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
That's a huge accomplishment. That's fantastic. And so it came out last year?
It came out in April.
Okay,
Yeah, April this year.
perfect. So we'll share that as well. So if people
Yeah, thank you.
read that, yeah, I'd love to read it too. That sounds great. And so you're not just an athlete, as you mentioned. What challenges have you faced in becoming a mentor, a motivational speaker, and a musical artist?
I think a lot of it literally boils down to the general public seeing your disability, and specifically you being blind or visually impaired, and them questioning your ability. Are you going to be able to do this? Are you apt to step into this space, into this role? And it's almost baffling at times because they see me, a lot of times people will see me as an athlete. And certainly I don't want to give the impression that, yeah, I'm some big time celebrity or anything. It's probably us having some preliminary conversation about, hey, what do you do? And somehow it goes to athletics. And then from there, they learn like, oh wow, that's amazing. You're a sprinter, you're a long jumper, you represent Team USA. But then when we talk about the other aspects of life, now it's them thinking that, oh, you're able to do this. Oh, you can you can put one foot in front of the other. You can tie your shoes. You can feed yourself. And I'm like, what? Yeah, like I literally can do all of these things. And it's funny because you would think that if someone sees you competing at a high level and traveling and doing all of these amazing things, that it would just connect the dots and make sense that, oh, they can make their way on stage and speak. They can write books. They can pay their rent or mortgage and live and cook and clean and all of these other things. So I think, long story short, it's the perception, it's the mindset that people have that I've had to face for years upon years and continue to face. Um, it's education. A lot of times, we all come from different backgrounds, and we all are raised differently, and so a lot of people literally just don't know. But at the same time, there are a lot of people out there. If you don't know, then keep your mind open, be flexible and open minded to learn about these things, because each day we're faced with new experiences. We meet new people, and everyone's not the same. Everyone does things differently, and we all require different. Uh, we all just require different things. Um, so I always feel like it's a really good opportunity for all of us to stay educated, to educate each other, so that as we move through life, as we traverse through these different encounters, then we're educated. And when we're faced with those similar situations again, we know how to I guess conduct ourselves, if you will, and make sure that we're not saying things or acting in a certain manner that may offend someone.
Absolutely. And so, what would you say to somebody who approaches you like that? Like, how would you respond to them?
It is. I would just prefer a lot of, just be honest. At the end of the day, I'm really huge into energy, and I feel like I can detect whether or not people are uncomfortable, if they are being, um, just acting, for lack of a better term, ignorantly. Um, and so at the end of the day, just be transparent. If it's your first encounter with someone who's blind or visually impaired, that's totally fine. That's an opportunity again for us to learn and be educated. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable by being around me. It's really not that big a deal. And so in spaces where a really clear example is, let's say if I'm out and about in the public and I need a little bit of help. Some people, they get super uncomfortable, like what do I do, how do I do this, da 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 da. And I just try to make them feel as comfortable as possible. Hey, it's this is what I need. Can I grab your elbow, and can you let me know when we need to step onto a curb or go down the stairs or up the stairs? And I get it. I think that, to their defense, you don't want to mess up, and you don't want to get anyone hurt or do anything that would cause harm, most certainly. But also, too, I'm going to make sure that again, you feel as comfortable as possible. I'm going to have my cane as well, so let's just, let's try it out. Let's walk together. If you can help me get across the street, or if you can help me get inside of this building and find a particular room, then I'm certainly going to be that person who gives those directions in a kind fashion and understanding way, understanding that it is a new encounter. Um, but from my perspective, again, as long as you are, open and willing, then we can make some progress. We can get some positive movement, and then from that day forward, you will now have been exposed to someone who walks in my shoes, there may be another opportunity where you meet someone who lives a similar experience as I do, and now you'll know how to assist them.
Fantastic. So, what, moving on to the like still motivational speaker, mentor, musical artist, what are some highlights of your career with that?
Mm, the speaking piece, I have been able to, man, I've spoken to a lot of different audiences. I've given commencement speeches at universities. That was actually one of the more challenging speeches, I would say, because there's not too much direction that I was given. It was, we want you to impart wisdom on these graduates. And that could mean absolutely anything, but it ended up being a really great experience for me. I've spoken for a lot of different companies, a lot of really big companies, and that's been phenomenal as well. You think about from a singing aspect with the music, I've sung the national anthem in front of a number of different audiences. I can remember when I had sang at the, where were we? We were at a major league baseball game, San Diego Padres game. I'm standing at home plate. I got the microphone in front of me and the headphones on. And the only thing that I could think about at that time was, oh, you can't mess up. You can't mess up. You can't mess up. Because everyone who messes up with the national anthem ends up on YouTube, and the title is something like X such and such person screws up national anthem. And I did not want to be that person who made the headline. So I had I put so much pressure on myself to make sure that I sang it correctly and knew all of the words. Ended up being a really fun experience. And again, it was nerve wracking because there's thousands and thousands of people inside of the stadium, and I compete in front of tons of people, but that doesn't bother me as much as singing a national anthem in front of people. So that was really cool, and have been able to been recording for the past few years, and actually more recently I haven't been in the studio much, um, but right now I am preparing to go back into the recording studio and record a full length project. So I'm pretty excited about that. I have this goal of creating a presentation that is a presentation that fuses the two, me being able to speak and share a lot of stories and experiences, but also intertwining the musical piece as well, having some songs in there and lyrics in there that complement what I speak about from a, you know, from an inspirational standpoint. So I'm really excited to see, you know, what I can come up with in terms of that. And yeah, it should be fun.
Oh, we'll be excited to see that too.
Yeah.
And so you're an avid collector of sneakers, particularly Air Jordans. So
Yeah.
what's your favorite pair right now?
My favorite pair of Jordans right now, I would say, are I have a pair of Jordan 4s, and they're these, like this reptile type of feel to it, like a crocodile type of feel to it. Those I would say are my favorite right now. I've only worn them single digit number of times, maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, well, you want to keep them looking good. So,
Exactly.
oh, fantastic. So, Nike designed a blindfold for you in the 2016 Paralympics. You have been compared to superhero Frozone from the Incredibles movies franchise. When you're wearing your own version of the super suit and this blindfold, who is your favorite superhero and which superhero traits do you share?
Favorite superhero would be Batman, Dark Knight. That's one of my favorite movies. I've listened to that a couple times before competition, and it just gets me in this space. And some of the traits and characteristics just the savviness and the intelligence, the ability to slither and sneak through the city. That is, I love the fact that um, he's just so like unassuming, if you will, Bruce Wayne. But he puts on that suit, and when it's time to conquer danger and and do what he needs to do, he turns into a different type of different person, different beast. And so when I think about competition and life, right now we're chilling, we're having this conversation, but when I put that suit on, it's go time, and it's time to really get out there and conquer the world.
Do you have a song that you listen to as you're getting ready that kind of motivates you when you go out there?
There are a number of different songs that I listen to prior to competition. It's always some sort of rap, hip hop, something get the blood moving, get you riled up. I wouldn't say that I have. Well, I will say I listen to Drake's 0 to 100. That gets me going a lot. Kanye West, a lot of his music gets me going prior to competition. So it just kind of depends on my mood.
Awesome. And so, okay, going back a little bit again, if you could go back in a time knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself as a child?
The advice that I would give myself as a child would be that a lack of sight doesn't equal a lack of vision. Literally, when I had lost my sight, when I went blind, the saving grace for me was realizing that everything that has been created and everything that will be created, it always starts with a vision. You see it within yourself before it's able to transform into reality. If that is at that point in time, at that age, you think to yourself that, okay, well, if this is true, then sight doesn't it's not the determining factor. It's our ability to see something more, to see things before they're in existence, to see beyond the horizon, and then to be able to make plans to bring whatever that vision is into fruition.
That's so true. I love that quote from you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a parent whose child is losing their eyesight? Like, what would you tell them if they were feeling scared about their child's future?
I would say to do as much research as possible and find as many resources and programs and specialists and people out there as possible. Losing Going blind is just it's just it's a challenge, and I think a lot of that stems from, excuse me, we live in a what I would say a visual world. You walk up to someone and, oh sir, I can't find this, and oh, it's over there, and they may point. You need your eyesight to drive a car, and I mean there's a lot of things that you can link eyesight to, and of course when we talk about driving a car, that'll soon be something that everyone will be able to do with the self-driving technology that they're coming up with. And I guess it's safe to say that into 2020 and beyond, there will be a lot of things with the advancement of technology. Being blind will not be an issue. But I personally think that given the given society and how society thinks, there still will be a lot of challenges. I think there are certainly things that can change in terms of how society is set up, so that people who are blind and visually impaired and people with a disability in general, um, there needs to be changes so that we can truly occupy this space, just like the next person occupy the space equally and safely and adequately. But circling back to the point at hand, kind of went on a little tangent there. For parents out there, finding out as much information as possible so that you can get your child in the best place to succeed. And I think with all of that, exposing them to different experiences, different activities, different programs, it helps to shift their thinking and see what is possible. That is that's the biggest thing. Changing that mindset, shifting that mindset so that they can go out into the world and do what they need to do. And if anyone says otherwise, then they can sidestep that. They can say, no, well, I can do that because I've done it in the past. I can use a computer because it has a screen reader on it. I can I can get onto the train because I I have this app on my phone and it says that the train is going to show up at 2:05 p.m. It's 1:55. Can you show me to the train track? Like there's just no excuses these days, but we have to position our kids in the right way and expose them so that they realize that these things are available.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And so, last question, what advice would you give to others who have low vision or who have invisible disabilities?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that for anyone who is low vision or anyone who has a disability, I would first and foremost say that, it sounds cliche, but anything is possible. And it is, again, it sounds cliche. You hear people say it a lot, but the reason they say it so much is because it is true. Everything, anything is possible. But again, it all points back to when you're a child, you depend on your parents and guardians and other individuals to teach you and to educate you. And so as you get older, if you're someone who's older and you experience a sudden change in life, a disability, then have the be vulnerable at the end of the day and be honest about your feelings, not only to yourself, but to those around you and to those who genuinely care and love you and who want to see you succeed. That is going to help tremendously because if they don't know what's going on with you, then there's no way that they can help you. So of course there's the literal aspect of if you're losing your sight or if there's another challenge that you're facing, um, people will people will be able to help, and specifically those who, they're your teachers or your counselors or uh, your family, whoever. Um, but then there are the things that we deal with internally, the emotions and those feelings linked to the challenges that we face, and that is that's normal also. The emotions and feelings, that's a part of the human experience. We'll feel sadness, we'll feel anger, we feel fear, embarrassment, ashamed, isolated, alone. Those are normal experiences that we all face. But again, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, now you're giving someone the opportunity to be able to help you get through those situations. But again, if you're not honest about those things, then they can't help you. So for anyone who has a an overwhelming circumstance, a challenge, a disability, whatever word that you want to use, be vulnerable. Do your best to be vulnerable and open yourself up to those who really care about you and connect with those who really want to see you overcome whatever it is that you're dealing with in life. That connection is huge, and those are going to be the people who help you get out of that slump if you're in one. They're going to be able to help you to see your potential, and that's the big thing. as I was mentioning earlier. Once you see what's possible and you see yourself in a way that you can go out in the world and literally conquer anything, watch out, world. Watch out, world.
Oh, that was fantastic. That's a great answer. Thank you so, so much for taking the time and talking with us. We really, really appreciate it. You're very
Absolutely.
motivational. And
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate it.